You're watching From the Soapbox to the Stage, and I'm your host, Bill Corbett. I once sat in a speaker's presentation where the laptop failed and the speaker couldn't go on without his PowerPoint. Now, this gave his audience a clue that he didn't really know his material. My guest says that this is critical in being considered a top speaker. With me on the show today is Reverend Clyde Talley, a professional speaker for over 25 years. He holds a master's degree in management and is also an ordained minister. In addition to being a pastor with his own church, Reverend Talley holds the highest speaking designation awarded by Toastmasters International, the DTM, or Distinguished Toastmaster. And he's also a past Toastmasters District Governor. Thanks for being here, Clyde.
Thank you, Bill.
In this segment, what I want to do is I want to focus on tips that we can offer our viewers who are aspiring speakers or those who are new, or we can always learn. Like you said in the first segment, you're a life learning student, and so I totally believe we never get to the point where, okay, I know everything. Mm-hmm. And when I run into somebody who feels that way, I feel really disappointed, and I think they miss the point. So one of the tips that you gave me was knowing your material. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, we talked earlier about the icebreaker speech. I call it the ice speech, but it's really the icebreaker speech in Toastmasters, where you talk about yourself. And who knows you better than yourself? Some people feel that, well, I know me, so I can just get up there and just talk about me. However, sometimes when you get up there, even though in your mind you know what you want to say, when you look out, you get that blank and say, what was I going to say? If you've practiced your material, then you know your material. And I always tell this to all speakers, at least have 3 points that you want to talk about. And one thing that we've learned in Toastmasters is that tell them what you want to tell them, then tell them what you told them. So first of all, you want to say, well, what is it that you're up there talking about? So you tell them, this is what I'm going to talk about. Even if I'm going to talk about me and a vacation that I had and why it was the best vacation ever. Oh, so now we're prepared. We know what you're going to tell us. So tell us the story. That's to tell us. And then tell us what you told us. So at the end, you wrap it all up by saying, so now you have an idea when I went to Florida, why that was the very best vacation that I had. And that's all through preparation, preparing, and knowing what you want to talk about.
Now, you prepare constantly. Every week you have to prepare a new
That's
sermon. Right. Preparation is important, not only from the speaking side, but the business side. There's so much prep work that we have to do as professional speakers. What suggestions do you have for people about the preparation process? You know, like, on Friday, throughout the week, I'm sure that I'm imagining, you're reading material, you see something on TV and go, that's what I got to talk about. Because as a writer, I write a syndicated column every week. So my work is similar, except I'm not delivering it for an hour multiple times, but I have to write a column, and I'll see something during the week, or I'll see somebody and go, that's an interesting point. Preparation tips. How would you guide people who are professional speakers, who want to be professional speakers, in preparing what they're going to talk about? Any suggestions?
Well, definitely. First of all, you want to make sure that you have a subject that you have a passion about. And you talk about that in your book, Soapbox to the Stage. If you don't have the passion, then you're not going to be too enthused about delivering the message. So although there's good material out there, and if you have the good material in front of you, but you're not excited about it, it doesn't turn you on, you're just presenting the material, people can tell. But when you get material that you can just sink your teeth into, and you're excited about it, if nobody else is excited about the material, you're excited about the material, that is conveyed to your audience. And they start getting enthused. And they want to hear what you have to say. So in selecting your material, you also need to understand that you can't tell it all. And like what my pastor told me, don't make people happy twice. Happy you got up and happy you sat down. Because you talk too long.
That's good.
So even if you can have the best material, you can't talk about it all. So you want to bring out the highlights. What are some of the things that really turned you on when you read about the subject? And although there's a whole lot you can say, sometimes you have confined times that you can speak. Sometimes people says, well, can you talk about that for about 10 minutes? Then next thing you know, look, I know I told you 10, but you really got 5. So how do you condense a whole lot of information into a condensed version? Well, you can do that by making sure that you have a comfortable amount of information to deliver within the time frame that they give you. And that's very important. Whatever you do, stay within the time frame. So if you have to cut it, you can say, there were 5 points I was going to talk about. I'll talk about 3. How can you do that? Because you know your material.
All right, so then you're a pastor. So I have to ask you this question. What about the pastors, and you can't answer for everybody, but how about the pastors who know that they normally deliver a 45-minute sermon or an hour and a half? They have the time frame. As soon as they go over, because they're so filled with passion for their topic, and now people are thinking about the relatives are coming over, I got to get the turkey dinner in the oven, or the Patriots are coming on, right? And now people look at their watches.
Right.
But I think they forget that they don't get it. They've got to get out of their head and get back into the room, right? Because they kind of lose track.
Exactly. But the good training that I had in Toastmasters is that you practice to give a speech within a certain set time. So that's what I do. And on the average, I look to have all of my sermons to always end around the same time. Now, people say, well, you can't control how the Spirit moves and how God's moving you, and there may be more you want to say. Well, that's true. But one thing that you learn is that you always read your audience. Now, some people, they vote with their actions, because somebody can have an open Bible, and then when they think that you've gone too long, the signal is when they do. You're not done. Yeah. But they've closed theirs. So that's a hint. Or they're looking around and they're like you said, you're starting to lose your audience. So even if you're a pastor, if you're a preacher, if you're a speaker, watch your audience. Know your audience. Read your audience, because there are telltale signs. People will always remember a good speech if it's not long. But if you're long, even if it was great information, people just say, yeah, he was all right, but he talked too long.
I had a situation one time. I was speaking in front of a group, and my watch died. And I'm starting to see signs from the audience that they're looking at their watches, they're yawning. They weren't listening to me, and I'm going, I got plenty of time. What's going on here? And then somebody, a lady in the front row, she went, and I said, so excuse me just a minute. I have 10 after. She says, no, it's 45 minutes past that. And I went, oh my goodness. And I felt so bad. But again, these are things that'll come up. So ever since then, I always make sure I have a backup clock somewhere.
Right.
And if I don't have a backup clock, I usually find someone in the audience to be my backup. Look, if I'm this close, let me know.
Right.
And if I travel with family or I have an assistant, I make sure that they do that. But you're so right. You can have the greatest message in the world, but that's nice. If your audience isn't listening anymore, forget it. And the other thing that I like to offer along with that is what you said before, Clyde, is if they give you 10 minutes and you're promised 10 minutes on a topic and now it's 5, you got to go with the change because they don't care. Your audience doesn't care, especially if you're at a conference and they're on a schedule.
Absolutely.
Right? And now you're cutting into their break.
That's right.
You're cutting into when they're supposed to use the restroom, go make their phone calls, check their email, and that's a huge violation. That is a dead giveaway not to get invited back.
That's right.
If you violate people's schedules, right? Have you seen that?
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And the thing is this, it's not personal, but like you said, people, they schedule their breaks, they schedule activities, especially if you're at a conference. So you just make the adjustment. And that goes back to knowing your material, because if you know your material, you know exactly what you can cut out, what are the most important things that you want to make sure they walk out of there with. And if you don't know your material, you're trying to fish through your material, trying to figure out, well, what do I say? And what do I bring out? And what do I choose? And how do I do this?
Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares. The classic that happens to me on a regular basis is I'm hired to be the keynote speaker. And I sat down on it for 2 weeks. I went over and I crafted this, 1 hour keynote, or sometimes it's like 45 minutes keynote. I'm kicking off this event, and they have a speaker who gets up there to do their housekeeping. Before you know it, they're chewing into my time, and now my keynote's been reduced from 45 to 20 minutes, even though they're not going to change the fee they're going to pay me, but now I've got to take a 45-minute speech and break it down to 20 minutes, and you're right, and if you don't know your material, you're going to go, panic, oh my gosh, where do I start in here?
That's right.
And unfortunately, too many speakers, they don't get that, and they try to take more time, or they'll say something like, well, I don't really have a whole lot of time, but let me get... Nobody cares about that either.
That's right.
Don't tell me, I call it showing your underwear. Don't show me your underwear. Just perform. That's what you're here for, right?
That's right. Absolutely right.
and it's not fair, but that's the way things happen. Real quick, we just got another minute left, but enthusiasm. That, of course, plays a role in it, right?
Well, it works hand in hand with passion. You got to be enthused about your material, because if it doesn't excite you, how is it going to excite anybody out there? And also passion. Passion takes enthusiasm one step beyond. In that, if you have a passion about what you're talking about, then people will hear your sincerity. They will hear that he means what he says. He believes what he says. And he wants me to get it. And this is very important to him. Even if it's not important to me, I can tell it's important to him. So that's why it's very important. And one thing I would like to say, and this is not a plug, and it's not because you're my friend, I would encourage folk to get Soapbox to the stage. The reason why is because it is a consolidated book of information that they can read from start to finish to really get to that point from doing free gigs to paid gigs, but also how do I get my contacts established and how do I get myself established as a professional speaker?
Excellent. Well, thank you for that pitch, Clyde. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. You've come kind of quite a way, and I appreciate you doing that. And good luck to you.
Glad to be here.
And your speaking.
Thank you.
On today's show, we met Reverend Clyde Talley, a professional speaker and church pastor with over 25 years of experience on the stage. His number one tip for us was know your material. Doing so keeps you prepared for the worst situations involving technology, and it also ensures that you can address tough questions from the audience. Now, I hope you'll join me for future episodes of the show as I set out to tap into the knowledge of professional speakers who are willing to share their secrets for success on the stage. As Dale Carnegie once said, make the most of today, get interested in something, shake yourself awake, and let the winds of enthusiasm sweep through you with gusto. I'm Bill Corbett. I'll see you the next time on From the Soapbox to the Stage.